We'll go ahead and let people kind of fall in here as we're getting Facebook going. It's good to see you, Juan. I don't think, I think it's been over 7 months to see anybody from the council in person. It's always like, oh, it's the person in the gray square. So it's one of these days, hopefully we'll have face to face again. So again, I'd like to welcome everybody. My name is Wolfgang Krosky. I'm the current CEO of the Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce. And this video today is another continuation of our series where we are interviewing the candidates who are running for the Pittsburgh Unified School District, who are running for Pittsburgh City Council, and who are running for County Supervisor District 5. We are interviewing every single candidate. You can go to www.pittsburgh.vote, and on that site, it is provided by the Chamber of Commerce. You can view all the candidates. You can read their bios. There's links to their websites, their Facebook profiles. We will also have all the videos from these one-on-one interviews there. And we are putting together 3 candidate forums where you will be able to have your questions asked of the candidates and get answers from them. So on this site, you can register to view the candidate forum. You can view it on Facebook Live, or if you would like to actually view it in the Zoom format, you can register to do that. And you can ask your questions on that site. And to provide full transparency, we've provided the actual Google Sheet where as soon as you submit your question, you will see it pop up onto that Google Sheet, and that information will be used on that forum. And we're also encouraging all of the candidates to check out those Google Sheets so that they can see what are those hot topics, those important items to you as residents, and provides them an opportunity in their own unique ways to address those, whether it be in online videos or updates on our website, whatever they choose. So today we have with us Mr. Juan Banales, who is currently serving on the City Council. He is here with us today, and we are going to have a nice interview with him. So with that, Juan, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Definitely appreciate first the opportunity that the Chamber is providing to host these conversations with candidates and give the public the opportunity to get to know us a little bit better. So my name is Juan Banales. As you mentioned, I have the honor of serving as one of 5 Pittsburgh City Council members for the past 4 years. A little bit about me. So I was raised here in Pittsburgh, went to all Pittsburgh public schools, Highlands Elementary, Central Junior High while it was still around, and Pittsburgh High School. Graduated, proud graduate of the class of 2009. After that, I went to UC Berkeley to get my mechanical engineering degree and graduated in 2013, where I immediately had the opportunity. I was fortunate enough to be able to come back to my hometown and live and work here, where I work as a maintenance group leader, and for previous to that, an engineer at Corteva Agriscience, which was formerly Dow Chemical, but is now Corteva Agriscience here in Pittsburgh. So with that, I've been able to, as I said, live and work here, and it's afforded me the opportunity to be able to contribute back to my community, the community that helped to raise me. So when I came back in 2013, I applied for the Planning Commission, was appointed, served in that role for 3 years, and then decided to run for City Council in 2016. And the community supported me in that campaign. And as I said, I've been honored to serve in that capacity the last 4 years.
Awesome. So one question that we've asked all the candidates is, especially those who are running for re-election, is you've already been through running for office. And I know the immense pace at which election season is. It's just nonstop, and it's a lot of energy. It takes a lot of money. You have, as a current council member, a lot of subcommittees. Just a lot of effort goes into this. So why are you rerunning? What is your why?
No, and you're absolutely right. There's a lot of effort and energy that goes into running for any office, and specifically a city council race. And I have tremendous respect for anyone who decides to take that on, and really looks to engage with the public on critical issues. For me, the why. Let me go back to 2016 and give you a
Hmm.
glimpse of why I decided to run back then. Right. So I felt that back in 2016 there was a need to refocus our priorities at the city in terms of infrastructure investment. All right, so that was one of the key things where I felt, look, our infrastructure is a key component of our city. It is also a key component of economic development, whether people believe it or not, and it needs to be maintained, and we
And when
need
you
to make.
say infrastructure, not to interrupt you, but I am just for those that may not understand, when you say infrastructure, what does that mean? What does that look like for a city?
Yeah, so as a city, we own and maintain the public roadways, right? So
Hmm.
streets is a key part of infrastructure, but also, you look at water infrastructure. We also provide water service for all our residents. So the pipes that carry the water and convey it to your home, but also the public infrastructure in terms of the water plant, for example, is another key area where that can be tied into infrastructure. But for me, one of the bigger focuses has been on roads and streets and road maintenance specifically. And so in 2016, really wanted to make sure that we were focusing in on that and investing in our roads and road maintenance. Another key area was economic development. So a big part of the reason why I'm able to contribute, in the hours that I'm not at my full-time job,
Hmm.
is because it's local, right? And that affords me the opportunity to give back to my community. And I really would love to see that for our young members of our community, that as they go and establish themselves and figure out what it is that they want to do from a career perspective, that hopefully that can be here in Pittsburgh, and that they can return and be able to have that good paying job that affords them the ability to live here and give back as well. A big part of what frustrates, I'm sure, a lot of folks is kind of the long commutes outside of Pittsburgh to go to work, and it doesn't leave for much, additional time or extra time to spend with their families, to go to the youth sports and cheer on their kids, or
Hmm.
we do our best, and
Right.
everyone makes it work, right? But just imagine what you could do with that extra time back. So a big focus for me back then was also economic development, job creation. And I'm happy to say that over the last 4 years, we've made some good progress in those areas. Over $1 million just last year allocated to road maintenance, which, because of how the budgeting works, that was last fiscal year, but we'll see those improvements starting to happen. One launching this month, I believe. So some significant level of investment that we've been able to accomplish on the council over the last 4 years. And also in terms of the economic development space, we have, I think, a strong pipeline of projects in the queue that we're working towards and trying to analyze from an environmental standpoint, obviously, what potential impacts there are. But I think that's key for a city like us, that there is that jobs housing imbalance where we have more folks that live here but not enough jobs to help sustain or have available for the folks that live here. So increasing the number of jobs via economic development or project pipeline is important for me.
Absolutely.
And it's one of the reasons why I've seen the tremendous progress we've made over the last 4 years. I wish we were further along, right? But I think that an additional 4 years, and it's one of the main reasons I'm running, is to make sure that we continue that progress and make sure that we follow through with those commitments and
Hmm.
show our community those results in terms of specifically the economic development projects that we have lined up. So that's really the why, is really to continue the work that I've been able to push forward. And there's so many other areas and projects and initiatives that I've helped to push forward. And we can spend a lot of time talking through those, and I'm sure and happy to talk through them here. But those two key areas, right? Infrastructure development and infrastructure maintenance and investment, and then economic development are key areas for me that I want to make sure to continue to focus on in the coming years if reelected.
So is it fair to say that the infrastructure and economic development are passions of yours?
Yes.
Okay. And I think it's important I think, use the word passion and for people to understand what is somebody's passion, because when you're passionate about something, that's when you go the extra mile, you do more and you're committed to it. So to know that your passion, not that you can't have other passions, but as far as city council, the infrastructure and economic development is definitely huge. And
And if
obviously
I
the
could,
chamber, oh, go ahead.
yeah, if I could just elaborate on that, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned passion, right? And it takes a lot of effort and time
Right.
invested in trying to make things happen within local government, right? And so, um, because I'm passionate for, let's say, infrastructure being one of the passions is I sit on the infrastructure and transportation subcommittee within the city. As mayor last year, I actually created the ad hoc on infrastructure, right? And so, and was key in converting it into a standing subcommittee. So I think definitely being passionate about key areas is helpful, and it really helps to drive me in terms of making sure that these areas are taken care of and that
Mm-hmm.
someone's paying close attention to them on the council.
Right. And just for our viewers, because I understand when you say ad hoc subcommittee and all these different things. So the reason, and we've had some comments on other videos where people say, well, how come they don't talk about specifics? So when somebody is an elected official, for them to talk publicly about certain things before it hits a official city council agenda can create some issues. And so that's why will use the word projects. There are ways to learn more about what those current projects are, but we're not going to get in those details during these interviews just because it can create potential problems. But what members of an elected body can do when there are specific items or specific topics that they want to focus on, they can create smaller committees that are made up of other city council members, city staff, people from the community. And that's all that group is going to focus on. And they meet on a regular schedule. And then whatever is done in that subcommittee is then reported back to the city council. And during those ad hoc committee meetings, there are not items that are voted upon. It's all those action items are done at the city council level. So for those that are talking about, well, what's this committee or that committee, it provides a way to have meetings that we're solely focused on one topic, so we can spend time, talk on items, work on items, and then bring a more completed product to the city council for further discussion, public comment, and then action. Is that a good summary of that?
I think so. And one
Okay.
one thing just to add on is
Mm-hmm.
there's no more than two council members on a
Correct.
subcommittee, which obviously a majority would be three. So you're right. There is no action or votes that occur from a subcommittee. And so really, yeah, we do the work and have heavy and discussions on a specific topic or item, propose things to the larger council, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where really the consensus building occurs and the public input is provided on a more formal basis, but the public's also invited to all those subcommittee meetings so they
Correct.
can have that dialogue with council members at that time. And another thing about, I know you mentioned projects, specifically, certain projects that haven't come before council. And while we can't talk specifically about, how we would vote on a certain item, one of the things that I have committed to and always been open about is listening, right? So if there are
Mm-hmm.
concerns that folks have, I'm happy to listen. And really that's one of the biggest responsibilities I have as an elected official is to be accessible and to listen to our community when they have concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can attest, both for you and for Jelani, both when there's been issues from the chamber's standpoint, you've been definitely open to meeting and talking about those, so that uh, you definitely are accessible for residents. So obviously the chamber, we're a business organization. We have the sole focus is our businesses and our business community, and doing anything and everything we can to help strengthen our businesses. So while you've been on the council, what action items or what have been plans that you've carried out in regards to specifically our business community? And you have a successful campaign, you're reelected, what would you like to further bring and to see taken care of for our business community?
No, it's a critical topic, and thank you
Mm-hmm.
for asking the question. Right, it's especially even more important now, right, during COVID, and really the struggle that we're all in, but our small businesses are suffering, right? And it's one of the reasons that, based on the leadership and example that the chamber set with its initial grant program, right, to be able to try to help the small businesses in Pittsburgh. One of the things that we were able to do at the city level just recently, I think it's the end of last month, was approve a $250,000 grant allocation for the chamber to administer to small businesses throughout Pittsburgh. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the, I think, important things that we've tried to focus on right now during COVID. And while we can't alleviate all the pain and suffering and the impacts really that COVID is having, both from a health standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint here locally, we can try to ease the impact a little bit, and that's really where I've been listening. I've had interactions with small business owners who reached out and said we need help,
Right.
and that's really why I pushed for that 250,000 to be allocated, and to come on the agenda fast, right? We couldn't wait 6 months. It needed to be done as soon as possible. So it's one of the things, one example of the I think the chamber and the city working together to help small businesses. And I
Mm-hmm.
really see that as a model for how the city and the chamber should work, right? The chamber is there to help advocate for small businesses and to be creative in terms of its solutions, and really present ideas and those creative solutions to the city for partnership or for support, right? So if we can fund, or we can allocate, whether it's resources, whether it's monetary or not, or something else, then that's really where I think we can do have the most impact. But I think it's with the chamber leading, right, and not necessarily the city. There's only so much we can do, and
Mm-hmm.
nor I think is kind of our primary um, function. It's really the chamber's primary function, and I've seen the change over the last I'll say year and a half, with the chamber really having some creative solutions, and not hesitating to come and partner with the city. And so I want to thank you, Wolf, and Chris Moreno, who's also led up the chamber, and just heartfelt thank you, because when I think we're collaborating, it makes it better for small businesses in terms of kind of the results we're able to produce. But I just say that because I think it's definitely a model that we want to continue. Also, another initiative that I helped push on the council was a fee reduction pilot program. So when the fees, city fees for permits, for example, came up, every so often we have to review the fees and establish new ones, whether that's increasing them or decreasing them.
Right.
And we have to understand kind of what cost goes into that from a staff time perspective, right? So there's a time study that goes into that to understand staffing levels and how much we're charging for those permits. But one of the things that I think I was able to bring to the table was, okay, well, that's great. We have fees, and yeah, we want to recoup staff time, but at the same time, for our small businesses, what potential breaks can we give in terms of some of those fees
Mm-hmm.
when folks are trying to, let's say, improve their spaces, right? Their storefronts, their businesses. And so we essentially selected some corridors with your input as well at one of the council meetings, in terms of some specific corridors throughout the city that I think could use some attention and focus and help. And we were able to pass that pilot program. to be able to waive those fees, which can be significant, especially for small businesses. For some of the larger, we're not subsidizing, huge companies, right? They don't qualify for those fees, but for some of the smaller businesses, it can have an impact. So that was pre-COVID that we were able to do that. Obviously the kind of microeconomy here in Pittsburgh has definitely been impacted by COVID. So definitely looking for additional opportunities as we look to recover economically from the impacts of COVID. And as I said, the grant program is one way, and we'll continue to look for additional opportunities to help support our small businesses. And then just one more thing, you mentioned, if reelected, what would be my focus in
Right. I was just going to follow up on that. Yeah.
The business community. And really one of the key things that, I've kind of learned over the last 4 years, right, is yes, as a city, we can do economic development in terms of we can have projects that we help push that on property that the city owns. But a big part of what drives growth in the business space is really the workforce, and that starts with the education and the skills training that we are able to provide within our city, right? And so a big focus for me, I think, moving forward would be trying to understand how we're partnering with Los Badones College and some of the union apprenticeship programs, for example, to make sure that we provide these opportunities for folks to learn skills that are at demand or on demand for businesses here locally. One great example, right, when Bombardier came to set up shop here in Pittsburgh to build the BART trains of the future, in talking with one of the executives there at Bombardier, I was saying, look, we have Los Badones College down the road. It'd be great if you can start working with them to create a maybe it's a multi-course training program, but a job training program where folks can apply to that program and then get the skills necessary to be able to apply and successfully get a job at Bombardier. I think that really helps to make sure that those jobs, stay local here. So really more of that partnership with Los Badones College to understand what opportunities there are in the education and job training space. As a city, we have the power to convene, right? And I noticed that, part of the chambers, behind you on the is convener. We can also help in that space and help to drive that. Another thing that in our youth development plan that was youth strategy that was recently approved by the council, I mentioned what are the metrics that we're looking at in terms of our youth, and what does success mean, and in large part we have focused a lot on how many of our kids go to a 4-year college, right, or how many kids graduate high school, but that's not necessarily good indicators of success in terms of what we want to see within our community. What we want to see, at least from what I think a good vision is for our young people to be able to come back and have jobs here in Pittsburgh. And so that's really what we should be measuring, and that's what we should be holding ourselves accountable to. And so that's, one of the things. I know it's an education piece, and this is the city council, but I feel strongly that in order to build that pipeline of economic development, that's a key component that we cannot do without, right? We can build all the jobs, create all the jobs we want, but if we don't have folks here in Pittsburgh that were raised here, that live in Pittsburgh, that are qualified to take those jobs, then it doesn't help us.
Right. And I think that's an important piece to bring out, is that, I've heard, when we talk about the grocery store issue, right? And people say, well, why can't we get a Trader Joe's? Why can't we get this? It's a city, a chamber, even a landlord. You don't go to Costco and pick up a Trader Joe's off the shelf and install it, right? And I know that sounds lame to say that, and some people say, of course, Wolf, you don't do that. But there are, people don't, I think, understand what it takes to attract a business to a community And there's a lot of pieces to that. And you brought up one of those large ones is the workforce that, whether it's a tech company or a pharmaceutical company or, any company, they need to know that they can attract talent to work there. And when talent is close by, it cuts down on a lot of issues as an employer, because you don't have to worry so much about commute issues, housing issues, that, it's all right there. So I'm glad that you brought up the workforce piece as part of economic development. And to transition from that question to the next one, you talked about youth, the business community, city, all these different groups that the topic of unity has to be addressed. It's when we look at our nation, it's very divided, and our community, I would say, is not as divided as other parts of the nation, but there's work and there's improvements that can be made. How have you addressed that currently in the city council, and how would you like to continue to address just the topic of unity? And I'll let you define what unity is and what groups that you feel may need to be unified more.
No, and absolutely valid, especially in today's climate. I think that we've heard, at least at the council level, right? We've heard a lot about youth investment and how our city has not traditionally had a lot of youth investment. And it's one of those things, as a council member, coming in 2016, it was one of the areas that, of course, I wanted to focus on and my colleagues as well. But unfortunately, given kind of the situation we were financially, there are priorities, right, that we have to juggle with. And public safety was a key priority at that time. And I started saying in 2019 as mayor, when I was mayor, I said, I feel that we have arrived in terms of where we want to be from an investment standpoint and performance standpoint in public safety. And now it's time to turn our attention to other areas that haven't had attention. And so I'm glad that this conversation is coming up, right, in terms of where investment needs to happen. And you mentioned unity in terms of kind of our city and nationally as well. And you're right, it's not, we're not representative of what's happening, around the nation. But at the same time, there's something there, right? And we need to listen during this moment as elected officials, right? We need to listen, and community members, right? Because these are community members that are voicing concern. And so one of the areas, right, where I feel that we can help with unity is, as I said, listening to each other and making sure that we have respectful conversations, and respect each other's opinions, because we all have a difference of opinions when it comes to some key focus areas for our city. How we want to invest in youth versus how we want to invest in infrastructure versus a myriad of issues. But for me, I've always tried to have a approach of listening first and making sure that I'm understanding what is being said and what is being asked, and then being able to see if it's possible, and if it's priority number 1, 2, or 3 in terms of where we want to go, let's say over the next 20 years. We need to be strategic about how we execute on plans. We can't just throw our plan out the window that we had over the last 10 years and start all over. I mean, we can, but it's not going to happen in 1 year, right? There's a staggered approach that we need to take. So really, for me, it comes down to making sure that we're all respectful and that we're all listening to each other when it comes to different ideas. And yeah, there's going to be some wild ideas. There's going to be some different ideas. And it doesn't mean that it's not a valid idea, or, we just need to be open to critically analyzing and thinking through, okay, this person has an idea. What is this possible? Is this feasible? What's the impact to the city? Financially, can we do it at this time, or does it need to wait? right? And that's really the job of being a decider, as an elected official, is to listen and then try to interpret that in terms of actionable, paths forward for our community. And so that's really where I think we have some room, is really to, as a community, respectfully understand each other, and make sure that we're um, analyzing every idea, and choosing what's best for us, right? Because
Right.
what works somewhere else may not work for us.
Absolutely. That's, I think, a very important thing is that we have too much, when you have these influences coming from all over, that may work in their area, but our community of Pittsburgh is different, and it may not work here. And so trying to filter, some may call them best practices, some may say that this is a right, whatever, but looking at what really works best here in Pittsburgh. And as you were speaking and talking about unity and saying that, that there's priorities and areas of focus, kind of bringing back a little bit of that economic development thread, is it fair to say that if the economic vitality of Pittsburgh was stronger, that it may allow for more areas of focus simultaneously, or being able to do more?
Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why it's been a critical focus for me over the last 4 years, right? We cannot do anything without those revenues coming in from economic development, but also the growth of our city in terms of whether it's property values going up because folks are able to afford more, right, in terms of housing, and values go up, right? So everything costs money, right? And so we need to be able to, as a city, in order to invest in other areas like our roads, like our public safety, or like our youth, our seniors, we need to be able to have those funds available, and be able to grow over time, right? We can't just stay stagnant either, right?
Right.
Yes, we have a large general fund, right? 45 million dollar general fund, that's great. We have a good, good sized general fund, when you think about cities of our size, that's actually not quite that large. And so what we need to do is be able to build, as you said, the economic vitality, so that we can essentially afford more in terms of the investment, and it doesn't tie our arms behind our back in terms of how much we're able to do at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And pre-COVID, I mean, we were pretty close, right? I mean, I would say that we were doing we were on a path where we were going to be able to focus in on some key areas where, when it comes to youth, seniors, double down on economic development, and really increase the amount of funding that we have available to that space, infrastructure development. For those that followed, our recent council meetings, we looked at a course, mapped a course for our Measure M funding, which, as revenues start to grow and come back in, hopefully sooner rather than later, from an economic recovery standpoint, I hope we can recover quickly. But as long as it takes, as those revenues grow, where are we putting that money in our community?
Mm-hmm.
And that focus has shifted, at least in my mind, to areas such as infrastructure, right? And how great would it be if, yes, last year we had $1 million that we were able to invest, million extra dollars, I should say, on top of what we've been doing. And then, how great would it be if we can invest another, 750,000 or $1 million there? And one of the strengths that I'll say I bring to the table here is, I'm all about the numbers, and I'm all about the bottom line, right? And so I really pay attention to the financials. I sit on the finance subcommittee for the city. So we need to do it responsibly with the resources we have, but it's critical that we grow the revenues coming in, so that we can do more with those monies coming in.
Yeah, and I kind of relate it, in the business community. It takes X amount of money to keep a business open, pay the talent that you would like to have as employees and to provide the experience that you would want to your customers. It takes that certain amount. And if you're not generating enough, you have to compromise. Maybe you're not able to provide that high level experience because it costs too much to provide. So you kind of scale back, and, maybe we go from white linen tablecloths to kind of a paper tablecloth. Yeah, I'm still covering the table, but it's not the same. Maybe, I would really like to hire that top level talent, but I can't afford it. So I have to offer less for salary, which attracts lower level talent. And so my business ultimately suffers. And it's kind of this cycle, downward spiral, because it really boils down to that not having that revenue. So it's, I really think that, as you pointed out, the economic strength is what makes it either easier or harder to run the city. And going back to the unity, that I think sometimes people feel that there's division because, well, my idea wasn't approved, or my comment wasn't approved, or this program was stopped, or funds were shrunk because we're going to do this program. And it kind of, it builds that. So how do you, as somebody who's already been elected, address those that may feel like you don't listen to them? You've always, your voting record goes against what they value, their passions. What do you say to those people? Because those are probably the hardest ones to bring in and to unify. So what do you say to them?
Right. No, and I would start with, please understand that, there are 75,000 residents, and
Mm-hmm.
with that, 75,000 unique perspectives as to maybe how to tackle a problem. And with me, I bring in kind of my professional experience, my professional background, to try to make the best decision. In mostly all cases, first and foremost, what the city can afford from a financial standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And those are at the top of my list, is making sure that we're not going to put our city in a position where we are fiscally irresponsible. And that's really, I think a lot of the times what drives and what has driven us to those disagreements, where folks may say, well, you didn't listen to my idea, you didn't adopt it. It's not that we didn't, at least from my perspective, it's not that I didn't listen or I don't listen. It's about prioritizing and making sure that we're driving as best we can some of the key areas that we feel are going to help to propel us into a stronger position as a city. So, as I said before, without strong economic development, we can't grow the number of parks or improve the quality of our parks, or maintain our landscaping better, or have a good ratio of cops to 1,000 residents, or good streets without potholes, right? So in order, if we can understand that, in terms of, we want the best for our community in the future, it's just about how are we able to set ourselves up from step A to Z to get there. And at some point, right, if it all falls together, right, and my vision for making sure that we have strong economic development vitality in our city, then we will have those dollars to be able to spend, whether it's on someone's idea that they want, as long as it makes sense for the community. As I said, 75,000 residents. I'm sure we don't all agree on everything,
Mm-hmm.
and so we just need to make sure that whatever we do is kind of in the best interest of everyone, and that's really what it is, right? We try to do our best. We don't always align, I'm sure, with everyone's perspectives or what they would like to see completed or accomplished. But just to summarize it, I do listen. I'm very polite and respectful, and I try to be as transparent as possible, so where I stand on issues, and at least know that if we have a conversation, I'm going to tell you where I'm at. I'm going to explain to you kind of, can we do it? Can we not do it? This is why. And that's what I can bring.
Thank you. So, we've kind of, we've talked about COVID, and hopefully COVID is a once in a lifetime experience and we never have anything like this again. Who knows? But even during the normal years and even of the best years, there's challenges that face a city. So, what are, in your opinion, the biggest challenges outside of COVID? We'll just ignore COVID right now. That Pittsburgh is facing, and if you're reelected those 4 years, what challenges do you think the council is going to have to face?
Right. So I won't go into infrastructure and economic development because we spent a lot of
We
time.
got it. You
But
you
yeah,
love that stuff.
but those are key. Those are key areas. But so some additional ones which are critically important. Um, outside of COVID before and even during
Right.
COVID is homelessness in our community, right? And so I think that's one of the key topics that comes up quite often, is the increasing numbers in terms of people finding themselves homeless in our community. And so that is a statewide issue, right? And we are not alone in terms of experiencing an increase in numbers there. Now we may come out of COVID with maybe some interesting approaches to how we help support those that do find themselves homeless, and kind of work to rehouse them and help them with finding a job and being able to sustain themselves in terms of housing. Um, so as I said, we may find some interesting approaches because of COVID has forced us to be creative. And there's also, I sit on the subcommittee for community services, which it's actually an ad hoc, and I created it as mayor in 2019. And one of the topics, one of two topics, was homelessness. And so right before COVID, we really tried to start to understand how large the issue was in our city, and try to measure the pervasiveness within our city in terms of how many people are homeless, and then try to adopt solutions, or uh, eh, solutions to help. But with COVID, that kind of got derailed a little bit. So we definitely, coming out of COVID, want to refocus on that, and it's something that I'm committed to, in terms of first defining, as I said, the pervasiveness, or how large the problem is, and then effective ways at how we're able to help, right? And so and then implementing those, but it doesn't come on the shoulders of just the city, and so that is really where the county, we need to partner with the county for them to step up as well. And one of the ideas that we have um, considered is a core team, which essentially is a team of trained individuals that the city would pay for, that the county manages, and they actually go around. So instead of, let's say, you see someone that might need help on in a park or on the side of the road, instead of calling the police, we have the core team go out, and they engage with the individual, and they help to find shelter for them, or other services. Maybe it's a mental health issue that they need help with. So the core team right now is the one that serves Pittsburgh, is distributed amongst multiple cities, so we don't have our own dedicated one. So that's something that I would definitely push for and consider, is having our own core team to help those individuals that find themselves homeless in accessing services. So instead of trying to enforce our way out of it with just a police solution, we really need to double down on that core. We already have some level of that, but we need to double down on that as well. So that's one key area that I know is on the top of a lot of folks' mind, pre-COVID. And I think the other one also is how we and it may be a small one, that folks, but it's very visible, right? And how we maintain our city, whether it's medians, whether it's parks, and how our city is able to make sure that our city looks nice, and that it is a beautiful city to live in, and drive around, and raise a family. And that's really where we're looking at creative solutions to help augment the staffing that we have. And we did a pilot program with a private landscape company to come in and help service some of the medians. And so that has actually so far been actually quite effective, although it was just a short pilot program. And longer term, we're developing a landscape and lighting master plan that will help to understand where the gap is, and if there's additional headcount that needs to be added, or how we fund that to be able to sustainably maintain our parks into the future. And then one last one that's semi-related is really another area that I want to see progress in, and it's how we develop our city, right? And a big part of that comes down to, as a city, when we get new developments coming in, I'm talking specifically about housing developments, how are we able to design those such that they are desirable places and communities to live in, right? And that they maintain over time, good value for those folks that come to live in those neighborhoods. And I think we've, over many years, started to get to this product where we have, homes that are really close to each other, and not a lot of, yard space, and not a lot of front yard space, and very little parks and kind of recreation area. So I think that's definitely a focus, is how do we institutionalize that closer look and critical analysis of a new development, and really expect more in terms of what it is that we want to allow within our city in terms of a housing development design. We want developments that have plenty of park space, that have amenities close by, so that people aren't driving as much. That's really what we want for the future, but we need to build that in. Excuse me. We need to build that in now, because, as you know, Wolf, serving on the Planning Commission, that housing 20 years from now is really decided now, in terms of the general layout. So it's really another area where I think that there's an opportunity for focus in making sure that future development works for us in our community, and creates a healthy, livable community and space, neighborhoods for our future residents.
So how do you, and this topic speaks to me in a couple reasons, so I have a follow-up on that, is obviously there's what we want to see in our city when it comes to development, but it's being trampled upon by state and county mandates. You have RENA, which Councilman Killings talked about last night, which is the regional housing needs assessment, where the government's saying you will build this many units, and you have all these outside entities kind of taking away that local control. How do you see city council being able to advocate for what we want here in Pittsburgh, opposed to what these other entities want for us?
Right, and that's really something we grappled with over the last 4 years, right? As more and more local control has been taken away from cities by the state, we have fought the fight, right, and tried really hard to make it known to our state representatives that we do not agree with local control being taken away from cities. But unfortunately, we have to, follow the laws that are passed, and we need to be able to work with those laws, and make the best of what comes with those. And specifically, there have been housing developments that, affordable housing developments, I'll say, because market rate doesn't. There's some legislation, in the works for that, and potentially we'll see that in the future. But most of it has been focused around affordable housing, and one thing I will say is, before I go into it a little bit further, we have the issue of affordability, and we have an issue of homelessness, as I mentioned before, in our community. And we need to ensure that we have a diversity of housing within Pittsburgh. It doesn't mean that we're all affordable housing. It doesn't mean that we're all market rate housing, but there needs to be that blend. Now, Pittsburgh has done what I'll say. We've done a good enough job, right? But there are still opportunities, and so it is important that when we get projects that come under, let's say, state fast track
Right.
processes, that we really try to engage with that developer and make sure that we are still, uh, trying to get as much from the developer in terms of a good project, right? And so far, I believe we've been able to do that. And we have been able to see a range when we talk about affordability. We've been able to see a range of affordability within like one unit, right, or one development,
Hmm.
um, which is good. Now we would love to push for more of a mix in a development, right? So you have market rate as well as some level of affordability all in one development, versus having all just affordability in one
Right.
development. So, but you're right. I mean, there is only so much we can do given the state mandates that come down. As I said before, when I served as mayor in 2019, I also serve as on the mayor's conference, which is all 19 cities within Contra Costa County. All the mayors meet once a month, and we have discussed a variety of issues. Um, and I served on the executive committee for the mayor's conference. And one of the key issues that we grappled with, was the large slate of housing legislation that came up, and that was considered, the state was considering passing. And we formed together as a the 19 cities to really strongly fight and oppose it. Now, we weren't 100% successful because some legislation still passed, but there were some really, um, I think there was some wins in terms of we have not seen some legislation. Now, it was more than just us, but we were one of the voices saying, Contra Costa County as a whole and all of the cities within Contra Costa County, including the county, do not support some of this legislation that is taking local control. So really collectively using our voice is another method to help with kind of fighting the fight when it comes to local control versus state control.
Right. Absolutely. And those are, so as far as the challenges, you brought up homelessness, you brought up, the local control, how we want to see our city currently and its condition, and then planning for the future. And those are definitely some big challenges, and it's going to take, and that's why we have that question about unity. It's going to take everybody and all the different stakeholders to make that happen. But what do you talk about those challenges, but what do you see as Pittsburgh's greatest strengths and the necessarily those strengths that are going to help us to overcome these challenges?
Well, and you know this, Wolf. I think we all know it. It's the people, right? The people of
Mhm.
Pittsburgh are our strength. And even during COVID, during a lot of the hurdles that we've gone through over the last several months, the people of Pittsburgh shine strong, right? And whether it's car parades for our graduates, right? That are organized. Which really shows the pride of Pittsburgh and how proud we are
Mhm.
of our own and our youth, or other events such as that where we're really getting out there to support each other, even with the protests and the outpouring of community members that help to go out there and listen and see how they can support. So
Right.
with all that it's the people that really are our asset in terms of what how do we move Pittsburgh forward. It's how do we together are able to build a stronger city. And in terms of unity, I think we're pretty strong in Pittsburgh. I think there's not as much division as what may what may be out, or the
Sure.
impression of
Hmm.
division. I think if you talk to people, um, you know most people love living in Pittsburgh, and most people, um, of course, they want to see more jobs in Pittsburgh, and they want to see safe neighborhoods, and they want to see their city maintained, and have the access to youth sports or other youth services. And so I think there's a lot of common ground that we can move the city forward on, compared to you know a lack of common ground. And so um, but it's all about if we're able to um, to all understand that and recognize that that we are strong, and that things are tough right now, but we'll get through it,
Hmm.
and we'll be stronger on the other side, as a city. So that's really where, from a unification and kind of our greatest asset, right, is the people of Pittsburgh and what we've been able to accomplish together over the last 4 years, and even before that, and what I'm excited to be able to hopefully, if reelected, accomplish together in the next 4 years.
Awesome. Well, I want to, and we'll give you an opportunity to wrap up, but I want to thank you for taking the time to have this interview. I really, as the chamber and the board of the chamber felt that it was needed to get as many residents exposed to the candidates as possible, so they can truly, quote unquote, meet them in a socially distanced, COVID approved way. And uh, luckily, I think the streaming of video is a great tool that can be used for that. So I appreciate your time. And again, for those watching, you can go to www.pittsburgh.vote, and there you can see the bios of every candidate for school board, city council, District 5 county supervisor, links to their websites, links to their Facebook pages. You will then also be able to register for our candidate forums that we have. We have a separate forum for each of those three races. You can submit questions. We've done everything possible to provide you access to the candidates, to ask them questions, and we hope that you take this opportunity, because right now, getting accurate information is key, and this doesn't get as more accurate as hearing directly from the candidate. So please ask those questions. You can view what questions have already been asked. That way, if you feel that somebody's already asked your question, maybe it encourages you to ask a different question that we will use for those candidates. So definitely go to www.pittsburgh.vote and view those resources. And with that, Juan, turn it back over to you to kind of give that sales pitch, that closing pitch, that why people, the residents of Pittsburgh, should vote for you.
Thank you, Wolfgang. And once again, I just want to thank the chamber for putting this together. Absolutely spot on. It's great to be able to share my message and be able to engage in a conversation about critical issues that we need to meet moving forward into the future. So I'll just start off with, again, it's been an honor to serve the Pittsburgh community as your elected official and city council member for the last 4 years. And I don't take that responsibility lightly. We discussed how critical it is to invest in infrastructure and invest in economic development, which will result in our ability to invest in key areas within our city, such as youth and seniors and some additional infrastructure. I'm going to fight for you. I've fought for you over the last 4 years in terms of key areas that need our attention to make Pittsburgh have a strong path forward to help build Pittsburgh into the city that we want to see it within the next 20 years. And I'll continue to fight for making sure that those key areas are addressed, and more so, as mentioned, I will be a listener and continue to listen to concerns from the community, and try to do our best to address those and really position the city, in the best possible position for years to come. So with me, you have, a strong voice when it comes to economic development and infrastructure, and you have a listener in terms of, what concerns you might have, and how we're able to address them as a city. And so I hope I can earn your support for this coming election to serve another 4 terms as your city council member.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And for those that are interested, again, our candidates forum will be on the 24th. You can register at www.pittsburgh.vote. That form will be a little bit more formal. And for those that have not have watched a form, there's set time frames in which to respond and the order of questions. Today is a lot more informal. We hope that it really gives you an opportunity to know these candidates. So it's not just a face on a poster or a name. And we thank you for watching. Again, Juan, we thank you for your time. I know you're busy, and making yourself available to us so that we can do this. And with that, just wish everybody a great day.